Outsmarted by a waitress, this billionaire's heartwarming encounter will leave you inspired. Jake Thompson was the man who had it all: money, power, respect. The 35-year-old billionaire was known as a polished, confident figure who strutted through life in tailored suits that whispered wealth. But beneath the polished surface lurked a hollowness, a yearning for something greater than his fortune. Amid the luxurious high-rises and designer boutiques of downtown, he felt trapped in a golden cage. He longed for the values of hard work, community, and family that had ignited his rise to the top, but they were fading fast. One ordinary day, in search of a quick bite, Jake stumbled into Maggie's diner, a humble eatery bustling with life. The charming little place was filled with the clatter of dishes and the laughter of regulars, a stark contrast to the sterile confines of his mansion. The sense of greasy bacon and freshly brewed coffee wrapped around him like a warm hug. There, amidst the vibrant chatter, he met Maggie, a single mother in her late 20s, her hands skillfully balancing plates of comfort food while she juggled her two young children. At first, Jake felt a twinge of disdain. He looked down on Maggie's endless struggles, viewing her life through the distorted lens of privilege. Yet, as days turned into weeks, Jake returned to the diner time and again. He began to talk to Maggie during her quieter moments. He learned about her relentless dedication to her kids and how she nurtured the diner like a second home, pouring herself into everything she did. It hit him hard: the reality of her resilience began to chip away at his preconceived notions, casting a light on the values he'd left behind. A week later, disaster struck. A gas explosion rocked the neighborhood, shattering the fragile peace. The blast threatened not only Maggie's diner but also the lives of her loyal customers. In the chaos, Maggie was a beacon of leadership, organizing volunteers, gathering supplies, and comforting frightened families. Watching her, Jake felt something shift within him. Fired with passion, he threw himself into supporting her efforts, using his wealth to aid recovery initially without fully understanding the implications of his actions. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Jake poured money into the diner, transforming it into a community hub, he found himself at odds with his elite peers. They warned him that this newfound empathy was a slippery slope, a betrayal of their ambitions that prioritized profit over people. Pressure mounted. Within the cozy walls of Maggie's diner, Jake confronted the uncomfortable truth. True wealth had nothing to do with money and everything to do with love, community, and integrity. As he prepared to face those who would judge him, the diner's future hung in the balance. Maggie, too, faced her fears of failure, the stakes higher than ever. In a world rife with socio-economic disparity, Jake stood at a crossroads between his past and an uncertain future. Would he choose the path of the heart, or would fear lead him back to a world that felt more foreign with every passing day? The morning sun filtered through the cracked windows of the diner, casting patches of light on the worn linoleum floor. Maggie stood behind the counter, her brow furrowed as she scanned the daunting list of repairs needed after the explosion. The walls needed paint, the kitchen equipment was in disarray, and the plumbing could barely hold water. Every corner reminded her of how precarious her situation was. Jake pushed through the door, the familiar bell jingling above his head. He caught sight of her and felt a rush of determination. She looked worn down, her hair was tied up in a messy bun, and her eyes held a deep exhaustion. Despite it all, there was a fire within her that drew him in. "Hey, Maggie," he said, flashing a smile that felt genuine for the first time in ages. "How can I help today?" Maggie sighed, placing her hands on the counter. "We're having a volunteer meeting later. Honestly, I could really use some more hands to get this place up and running. The community has been amazing, but we can't wait forever." Jake nodded. "Count me in." As the hours passed, he saw her rally her customers and friends like a maestro directing a symphony. Everyone felt her resolve, her stirring passion. He watched people transform, just as he had. They rallied around her like a protective circle, throwing their hearts and energies into restoring the diner. It reminded him of a time when he had sought the same feeling, only to bury it under the weight of ambition and wealth, yet the conversation with his colleagues loomed in the back of his mind, a specter of doubt. "You're giving away everything," his friend Tom had sneered, shaking his head in disappointment. "You've lost sight of what really matters." But as Jake toiled side by side with Maggie and the volunteers, he felt something grow inside him, something he thought had vanished along with his simpler days. The laughter, the shared stories, the way people came together, it felt like a rushing river washing away years of greed. This felt real, grounding. As he helped paint the walls a cheerful yellow, children played at the diner's edge, and families shared memories over coffee and syrup-laden pancakes. Life was bubbling here, alive in a way his high-rise skyscrapers could never capture. He saw Maggie beam as she recounted tales about her kids, and he realized that he was drawn to her authenticity. She lived a life rich in experiences rather than possessions, but then, the evening meeting arrived. The packed room buzzed with murmurs and laughter, yet the air turned thick with tension as Jake stood to address the crowd. He could feel their eyes weighing his worth. They were looking for a savior, but he was just a man wrestling with the fear of reverting to his old self, back to the life of suits and board meetings. "Thank you for trusting me," he began, his heart racing. "But I want to be clear, this is not just my diner. This is our diner. Each one of you is the lifeblood of this place, and together we can make it not just survive, but flourish." Maggie's eyes shone, a flicker of hope ignited in her gaze. Yet doubt swirled in the back of his mind. Was he truly ready for this? For the responsibility? For the scrutiny that came with stepping into a world he had always kept at arm's length? As the meeting concluded, a girl approached them, holding out an old, tattered photograph of the diner in its heyday. "I used to come here with my mom," she whispered, her voice thick with nostalgia. "You have to keep it alive." Jake's breath hitched. The weight of the world settled on his shoulders, yet he could feel warmth, acceptance from the community he was beginning to embrace. He looked over at Maggie, who was smiling down at the girl, and all at once, he understood. The choice ahead of him was not just about his past or his wealth. It was about hope, rebuilding together, drawing strength from those around him. This was his chance to rise, to bridge the gap between two worlds. But when he looked ahead, doubts lingered, and the question echoed in his mind, was he truly enough to lead them through the storm? The community meeting ended, but the weight of its importance lingered in the air. As people filed out, exchanging promises of help and support, Jake stood back for a moment, trying to gather his thoughts. He gazed at the once vibrant diner, now teetering on the edge of revival. Its spirit beckoned to him, urging him to take the leap he was so afraid of. Maggie busied herself cleaning up the stray cups and plates on the tables. The look of determination burned bright on her face. When their eyes met, she gave him a soft smile and gestured for him to join her. "Thanks for speaking up tonight," she said. The warmth in her voice made him feel a little lighter. "They need to hear that from someone like you. Someone who has been away from a place like this." He scratched the back of his head, unsure of how to respond. "I guess I just felt I don't know, like I needed to step up." "You've already done more than most. Just being here makes a difference." She paused for a moment, the twinkle in her eyes dimming slightly. "But let us be honest. It's a lot of work, Jake. I've been fighting this battle alone for so long. Are you really committed to helping?" The sincerity in her voice pierced through his doubts. "Yeah, I am. I know I still have a lot to learn, but I want to be part of this," he said, trying to push past the unease that clawed at him. Maggie's gaze softened, and for a moment, he saw something other than the weariness that usually clouded her features. Hope, maybe? Suddenly, the diner door swung open, startling both of them. It was Tom, Jake's friend from the corporate world, looking out of place among the homey chaos. "What is going on here?" he asked bluntly, scanning the walls, the paint canisters, and the eager volunteers rushing in and out. "Just helping out," Jake replied, a firm edge creeping into his voice. Tom chuckled dryly. "Looks like you're really throwing yourself into it. And for what? A few good karma points?" The room, filled with chatter and laughter just moments ago, suddenly fell silent, leaving an uncomfortable tension in its wake. Jake felt the eyes of the volunteers on him, waiting. "Tom, this isn't just some charity project. You wouldn't understand," Jake shot back, anger bubbling up in him. "These people need this diner. I need this diner. It might not mean anything to you, but it means everything to them," Maggie finished for him, her voice steady despite the sudden rise in stakes. "This isn't about just saving a diner. It's about community, hope, family." Tom crossed his arms, a smirk playing on his lips. "Family? With these folks? Good luck." He turned to leave, but Jake couldn't shake off the challenge hanging in the air. "What if I prove you wrong, Tom?" Jake called after him, his heart pounding. "What if we actually make this happen?" The door swung shut, and the heavy silence returned, punctuated by the sound of clinking dishes and soft laughter outside. Jake felt Maggie's eyes on him again, searching. "Are you really ready for this?" she asked earnestly, stepping closer. His heart raced. "I thought I was, but maybe I need to prove it to myself, too." Maggie's expression softened, a flicker of understanding passing between them. "Then let us do it together," she said. "One step at a time." He nodded, feeling a sense of determination settle in. The afternoon slipped away as they began to strategize together, laughing over ideas and plans. The diner felt alive with possibility, but as twilight descended outside, an ominous crack of thunder threatened to interrupt their hope. The life he was trying to build here was fragile, and that looming storm promised to test everything they were working for. Jake glanced at Maggie, knowing the battle was far from over. "Can I really do this?" he thought as he locked eyes with her, the doubt creeping back in. And that was when the power flickered. The lights dimmed, flickered, and then cut out completely, plunging the diner into darkness. Panic spread among the volunteers, muffled voices echoing uncertainty. Jake's heart raced as he scrambled for his phone, the faint glow illuminating Maggie's worried face. "Stay calm. We can work through this," he called, trying to anchor them. He stepped toward the doorway leading to the kitchen, aware of the whispers growing around him. Maggie moved beside him, pulling her phone out as well, its light just a whisper against the shadows. "We can use our phones to keep things moving," she suggested, her voice steady even amidst the chaos. Jake took a deep breath, focusing on the strength emanating from her. With her beside him, the darkness didn't seem quite so overwhelming. "People need to know what to do," he said, his mind racing with ideas. "I'll start organizing groups to check the outside for power," Maggie replied, her determination resurfacing. "You handle the crowd, keep them engaged." He nodded, adrenaline surging through him. "Let us do it." As they moved to their tasks, he watched Maggie shine in her leadership role. Her voice cut through the uneasiness, rallying the volunteers. It struck him how resilient she was, a blend of passion and grit like the diner itself. Jake took a moment, relishing the flicker of excitement inside him. He was part of something alive, something meaningful. He stepped onto a chair, his voice rising above the crowd. "Listen up, everyone. We're going to make this work. It's just a power outage. Let us use this time to share stories, ideas. Let us get to know what we're really saving here." Their laughter and chatter sparked back up, illuminated by the glow of their phones and the warmth of renewed spirit. As minutes turned into an hour, other volunteers shared stories from their lives, beaming under the pale light. Jake felt a connection building, the anticipation of something monumental forming in the air. Tom's words, however, echoed in the back of his mind, stirring doubt. Were they truly a family? Maybe he wasn't worthy of this new path rooted in community. Suddenly, the door swung open, a gust of cool air billowing in as a figure appeared. It was Helen, the diner's longtime cook, eyes wide in surprise. "What is going on? I heard the power went out." "We're just sharing stories to keep the spirit alive," Jake said, fighting the instinct to retreat. "This place, it's alive. The heart is beating even without lights," Helen remarked, moving closer, her firm presence commanding attention. "It's not just the diner," Maggie interjected. "It's about each of us. Our ties, our stories. That's what we're working for." "Exactly," Jake chimed in, enthusiasm pouring out. "In this dark moment, we find out what we're really made of." With each story shared, Jake felt the weight he carried lift just a bit. He could see it in the faces around him, a tapestry of hope, connection, and dreams shared over a simple meal. He felt he belonged. Then, without warning, the power surged back on. The lights flickered and danced back to life, illuminating the diner and the faces filled with renewed hope. Murmurs of joy erupted as people cheered, the room shined brighter than he could have imagined, but amid the celebration, Jake felt unease brewing still. Tom's smirk lived in his thoughts, a haunting reminder that the journey ahead wouldn't just be about saving a diner, it would be about proving others wrong, including himself. Can this hope last? He pondered, staring at the joyous faces around him. As their laughter echoed, another crack of thunder roared outside, signaling that the storm wasn't finished with them yet. Jake's heart pounded as he realized what came next. What else would they have to face together? The joyful cries of celebration began to fade as the sound of rain poured heavily outside. Jake shuddered at the sudden intensity of the storm, the room now bathed in bright light that felt almost too harsh after the comforting darkness. He could see the weight of events from the last hour etched on everyone's faces, joy still tangled with uncertainty. Maggie swept across the diner, her smile never faltering as she checked in on each volunteer. "Don't let those clouds sour your spirit. We've turned a tough moment into something beautiful," she called out, her voice radiating warmth and encouragement. Jake moved through the crowd, still basking in their collective energy but cognizant of the storm outside. The rain rattled against the windows, a fierce reminder that nature was still at play. Earlier, they had battled through uncertainty together, but now each clap of thunder rattled his composure. "Think we'll be okay?" A voice quivered next to him. It was a young woman, just out of college, nervously eyeing the windows. "Of course we will," Jake replied, injecting confidence into his words. "We've already proven we can handle the unexpected. Let's channel that energy." He grinned, hoping he could lift her spirits as Maggie had lifted his. As the minutes passed, Helen gathered everyone around the counter. "All right, folks. Let's keep the energy up. This storm is not going to stop us. Who's up for some diner trivia?" Laughter erupted instantly. Trivia became an unforgettable anchor amid the chaos. Jake felt lighter, drawn into the games and stories, rediscovering joy in those shared moments. Everyone seemed to operate on the same wavelength, their laughter mingling with the rhythm of a storm that felt like gravity pushing against them. But as he lost himself in the comfortable hum of laughter, a crash outside caught his attention. Everyone turned in unison toward the windows. "Are we safe?" someone whispered, fear creeping back into their hearts. Maggie's steady presence anchored everyone as she approached Jake. He could see the concern in her eyes. "What if the storm gets worse? What if there's damage? We can't lose this place, it's more than just bricks and mortars." Jake nodded, feeling that familiar knot of anxiety tighten in his chest. "We won. We'll protect it. And each other." The diner had become a refuge, woven from stories, hopes, and connections, but outside, wild winds howled as if demanding to be let in. Jake could sense the impending change in the atmosphere, each gust threatening to wrench their peace from them, leaving only chaos in its wake. Before he could voice his concerns, the lights flickered again, causing the laughter to morph into nervous whispers. The shadows danced across their faces, and he realized they weren't as united as he had thought. Maybe we should consider, he started, but the words clawed at his throat, reluctant to escape. Would they understand? Suddenly, the front door slammed open, a torrent of rain blowing in. A figure staggered into the diner, bedraggled and soaked to the bone. It was Tom, looking shaken and overwhelmed, the storm outside echoing in his panic-stricken eyes. "Jake!" he shouted, breathless as he pushed his way inside. "You need to see this, it's bad out there, the street's flooding." Jake's heart sank, but beneath the dread, something ignited within him. They weren't done yet. Not with each other. Not with the diner. As thunder rolled overhead again, he turned to the gathered crowd. "All right, everyone. I need your help." Outside the walls, the storm was throwing everything it could at them, while inside, a storm of determination began to brew. But could they weather this together? "Let us show this storm what we're made of," he shouted, and the air thickened with anticipation as everyone rallied, a spark igniting in their hearts. What awaited them outside? Would they rise together against the rising tide? Jake stood tall as he faced the frightened group around him. Their eyes mirrored the fear he felt inside, but he couldn't let that consume them. This was their moment. He glanced at Tom, who still dripped water onto the floor. "We need to check the storm's damage. Who's with me?" A hesitant murmur swept through the crowd, but then Maggie stepped forward. "Count me in. We'll go together." Her voice was strong, cutting through the tension like a beacon. One by one, volunteers began to join. "We'll need flashlights," called Helen, her brow sweating as she pulled open a drawer. The room buzzed with purpose as they gathered supplies. Jake felt the tension ease just a bit. Tom stood by the door, looking out at the deluge, the chaos wrapped tightly in sheets of rain. "Are you sure this is wise?" Jake met his gaze. "If we don't face it now, it'll just get worse. We can't let fear win. We protect this place." He nodded toward the volunteers, each of them nodding back with newfound resolve. Stepping out, the storm greeted them like a ferocious beast, but together, they pushed forward. The wind whipped at their clothes, rain soaking them instantly. The diner's parking lot lay just ahead, and cooler water surged around Jake's ankles as they made their way. With each step, Jake could feel a rhythm build among them, a united front, matching strides against nature's fury. They fanned out, checking the parameters of the diner. It was like a twisted dance, each one searching for problems while supporting one another. Anticipation and fear morphed into camaraderie. "Look over here!" someone shouted from the side. They gathered around a small section of the foundation, where the rain had pooled dangerously close. "We need to block this off," Helen called urgently. Jake rushed to grab a pile of sandbags stacked near the kitchen door, rallying everyone to help. It became a flurry of motion. Shouts of encouragement flew back and forth, each person pushing their limits, but they felt strong. Together. As they built a barrier to help redirect the flooding, the rain beat down ferociously, yet within their small assembly, it was as if a fire had ignited. Laughter pierced the tension every now and then as someone slipped or misdirected a bag, igniting bursts of joy against the backdrop of chaos. "Teamwork really does make the dream work," Jake shouted, winking at Maggie, who flashed a grin back. "More like it makes the storm bearable." She laughed, splashing him deliberately as she placed another bag into position. With one last effort, they secured the sandbags and stood back, breathing deeply. Even with the storm still raging, they felt victorious. That's when they noticed the streetlights flickering and then nothing. Darkness washed over the diner, plunging them into shadow. Murmurs of concern rose quickly. "Is everyone okay?" Jake called, his voice steady despite the underlying fear creeping back in. A cheer followed, confirming they were, but in that moment, Jake could sense a change. The storm was relentless, but so were they. The diner was more than just the structure of their gathering, it was a symbol of hope and resilience, their shared history wrapped up under its roof. "We can't stop here. he declared, illuminating the path forward. Together, we're stronger than any storm. With renewed determination, they returned to the diner. Jake caught Tom's eye, a silent understanding passing between them. They had challenges to face inside and out. But together, they were ready. So, what's next? Maggie asked, brushing a lock of wet hair from her face. Jake smiled, an idea igniting in his mind. We need to think bigger. The diner is our home, and these storms can't claim it. It's time we show everyone what we can really do. What did Jake have in mind? How would they revive their beloved diner as the storm outside raged on? As darkness enveloped the diner, Jake paced the floor, energized by the frantic energy swirling around him. All right, team, he called, glancing around at the determined faces. Here's the plan. We need to re-establish a sense of normalcy. Let us bring the diner back to life. Maggie, Tom, what do you think? Maggie stood with her hands on her hips, a spark of idea lighting up her eyes. We could start by fixing the leaks. If we can stop the water from pouring in, we can concentrate on the kitchen. That's our heart. Jake nodded. Exactly. Let us split up. Tom and I will tackle the leaks. Everyone else, check the kitchen supplies. Make sure nothing got damaged and see what we can salvage. With a chorus of yes, they quickly divided the tasks. The sense of urgency transformed into a burning desire to save their beloved diner. Jake and Tom headed towards the back, where the faint sound of dripping water echoed through the halls. Let us check the roof first, Jake suggested, pushing open the door to the supply room. The sound of rain roared around them, but it was the sea of clutter that held their attention. Old boxes, broken chairs and forgotten tools filled the space. We'll need some ladders, and hang on, I've got an idea, Tom interrupted. He rummaged through a pile of tarps until he found a few. These should help seal the worst of the leaks. If we can cover them tight enough, it'll buy us some time. Jake admired Tom's innovation, sensing their old bond of friendship reigniting amid crisis. They found a couple of ladders stored in a corner, with Tom expertly balancing them against the wall. As they climbed, the rain pounded harder, a rhythmic reminder of the chaos outside. Jake didn't look down. Instead, he focused on the slivers of light peeking through the ceiling tiles. It was disheartening to see the cracks, but it only fueled his determination. Tighten that side, Jake called to Tom, adjusting his position to work on another leak. The rain cascaded around them, sending hints of chilly air mixed with the damp smell of earth into the air. Almost there, Tom replied, pulling the tarp tightly. Moments later, a satisfied nod passed between them. That should hold for now, Jake said, stepping back on solid ground, the energy between them electric. Meanwhile, back in the kitchen, the rest of the team rummaged through the cabinets. Helen was in full swing, amplifying the mood. Hey, everyone. Let us make sure we have enough milk and eggs for breakfast tomorrow. No one wants soggy pancakes. Laughter bubbled up as they found their rhythm, voices filled with determination and hope, filling the space that rain couldn't drown. Maggie, can you check our perishables? Helen called. We might need to move things to safety. On it. Maggie replied, swiftly navigating the shelves as she assessed their supplies. Jake's heart swelled with pride. This was their community, working together to reclaim their space. Suddenly, a loud crash of thunder rattled through the diner's structure, a reminder that the storm was not finished yet. The lights flickered again, and with it came a wave of apprehension. The ground shook softly beneath their feet, but Jake refused to let fear creep back in. Let us position those chairs against the windows, he shouted over the din, fearlessly rallying the crew. We'll give ourselves some extra protection in case the wind picks up again. As chairs slid into place and hope surged around him, Jake caught Maggie's eye again. There was something unspoken, a spark of something deeper brewing amidst all the uncertainty. Jake! She called out suddenly, holding her hands out, grounding him in this moment. We can't just put band-aids on problems. We've got to think past tonight. What about? Her voice trailed off, but Jake could see the wheels turning in her head. He felt his curiosity peak, wondering what plan she might have in store for their beloved diner. Okay, I'm listening, he urged, the tension ebbing as excitement took over. What grand idea did Maggie have? Would it lead them to victory against the storm? Maggie took a deep breath, her eyes darting around the diner, filled with determination. What if we turn the storm into an opportunity? She proposed, her voice steady despite the drumming rain. We know we can't just fix these leaks for one night. What if we host a storm dinner right here, right now? Jake furrowed his brow, still processing her words. A storm dinner? You mean, bring the community in? But, what if the power goes out? What if the rain gets worse? She shook her head, a smile breaking across her face. That's what makes it special. We could light candles and serve comfort food. This storm won't last forever, but the memories we create will. Tom chimed in, caught up in Maggie's enthusiasm. People would love the idea. They'll come for a warm meal, laughter, and a shelter. It's not just about food. It's about being together, feeling connected. We did it last year during that blizzard, remember? Jake's heart quickened as the thought settled. Sure, it was risky, but they thrived on community, especially in tough times. Alright, let us do it. We need to move quickly. We can set up the tables, gather flashlights, and make an invitation to the neighborhood. A wave of excitement coursed through the team as they sprang into action. Maggie dashed into the supply room and began pulling out candles and small lanterns with a spark of joy. Each flickering flame reminded them of hope, lighting up their path forward. Jake focused on getting the kitchen up to speed. Tom, help me prep the food. We need our best recipes. They worked side by side, pulling out pots and pans that hadn't seen much action recently. The thunderstorm outside transformed their frantic atmosphere into an electric buzz of camaraderie. Each chop of the knife and sizzling sound became a tune that played against the relentless rain. Meanwhile, Helen and the others started spreading the word. They crafted quick flyers and went door to door, singing out the magic of the storm dinner. It was long before laughter filled the diner again, with the family feeling growing ever stronger. Maggie stepped back to assess the preparations. She felt a warmth swelling in her heart. This was what she loved about the diner, how it connected people, creating friendships that defied the mundane. But with the storm still raging, doubts crept in. What if it didn't work? What if no one came? Her thoughts were interrupted by Jake, who peeked his head from behind the kitchen door. Have faith, Maggie. Look at this team. We're all in this together. She grinned, finding comfort in his confidence. Just then, a loud crash startled everyone, followed by a moment of silence. The lights flickered again, dimming to darkness before the generator kicked in, casting a gentle glow over the room. A collective sigh of relief spread like wildfire. See? We've got this. Jake laughed, clapping Tom on the back. As the night wore on, the diner transformed into a cozy haven. The scent of simmering soup filled the air, mixing with the sweet notes of homemade desserts. They began to serve plates piled high, laughter dancing on the wind that rattled the windows, but as faces began to creak through the doors, drenched and smiling, Maggie felt a knot of intensity in her gut. She knew that this storm was only one part of a larger challenge facing them. What if their efforts brought them success tonight, but what if the next storm brought something worse? The door swung open, rain-soaked patrons stepping across the threshold with weary expressions turned wide-eyed as warmth enveloped them. Then, a familiar face emerged from the crowd, a face Maggie hadn't seen in years, a smile catching in the flicker of candlelight. Jake, Maggie. I heard you all were back in town. Did they have the strength to face not just the elements but also whatever was brewing beneath the surface? Would the revival of the diner also revive old memories? With the diner full and the night still young, the real storm was just beginning. Maggie's heart raced as she recognized the voice calling their names. It was Sarah, her childhood friend, gone from their small town for years. She looked different, her hair pulled back chaotically and her clothes drenched, but the warmth in her eyes was unmistakable. "Sarah!" Maggie exclaimed, rushing over and enveloping her in a hug. The familiar smell of rain-soaked grass mixed with the scent of home brought a rush of nostalgia that nearly knocked the breath from Maggie's lungs. "I can't believe it's you." Jake joined them, beaming with gladness. "What are the chances?" "Hey, I heard the diner was back." Sarah laughed, wiping water from her face. "I needed to see it for myself. This place holds so many memories." Maggie stepped back, searching Sarah's eyes. "How have you been? What made you come back during a storm?" "Life's a bit hectic out there," Sarah said with a half-smile. "But I figured it's always good to come home when things get rough." The storm raged outside, but in that moment, it felt like warmth had enveloped them all. As they chatted, laughter echoed around the room, mingling with the aroma of comfort food wafting from the kitchen. Those cozy moments were the glue that bound their small community together. Maggie suddenly realized that Sarah wasn't just a blast from the past, she might be a key ingredient in their efforts to revive the diner and the town. "We're hosting a storm dinner tonight," she said. "You should help us. We need all hands on deck." With a spark in her eye, Sarah nodded. "Absolutely. I've missed cooking with you guys." Soon, Sarah was working alongside Jake and Tom, chopping vegetables and stirring pots. Her laughter fell in sync with their banter, reminding Maggie of simpler times. As they prepared the next round of food, Maggie felt pieces of her old self starting to resurface, bits that she thought had been washed away with the years, but the atmosphere shifted when Sarah turned serious. "Maggie, can we talk later? There's something I need to share, it's about why I left." Her words hung in the air like the humidity before rain, charged with unspoken emotion. Maggie swallowed hard, but the warmth in her heart battled against the chill of uncertainty. "Of course. I'd love that." As the diner filled with more patrons seeking refuge from the storm, the community spirit surged. Old friends were reconnecting, laughter echoed, and stories spilled out like the rain outside. Yet, in the back of Maggie's mind, a worry lingered. How deep would Sarah's revelation cut? What kind of secrets could upend their night of togetherness? As the evening progressed, another wave of arrivals flooded in, forced smiles shortly crossing faces that revealed struggles beneath the surface. With every newcomer, Maggie's apprehension grew. Would the warmth they created tonight be enough to mend the underlying fractures? When the door swung open again, this time it revealed a young man, an outsider. Clad in a slick raincoat, he looked lost, eyes scanning the room as if searching for something or someone. "Maggie, are we ready for another round?" Jake called as he pulled her away from her thoughts. She turned back to the crowd, her heart beating faster. Was he looking for comfort too? Or was something else coming their way, ready to mix with the tempest already brewing? As she glanced back at Sarah, their shared smile faltered. What stories were yet to unfold, and would they shatter the fragile peace they just embraced? With the night far from over, Maggie's heart raced with the promise of connection and the fear of what truths could storm in next. Would the diner withstand this unexpected barrage? The diner's atmosphere buzzed with excitement and energy as patrons shared laughter and stories over steaming plates of comfort food. The storm roared outside, but inside, Maggie felt a warmth rising, transcending the chaos. But even amid the joy, a sense of anticipation stirred in her chest. Sarah's revelation loomed, promising to shift everything they built in such a short time. Jake moved among the tables, serving coffee and encouraging laughter. He felt the weight of each interaction lightening his heart, but he couldn't shake worry. It was like a whisper coming from somewhere deep inside him, reminding him that the storm wasn't just outside, it was brewing in the faces of those around him as well. As Sarah joined the cooking crew, eyeing the kitchen with nostalgia and purpose, Maggie's heart soared. The camaraderie reminded her of how special this diner could be, not just as a building, but as a haven for connections, healing, and hope. She saw in Sarah's eyes the same resilience she felt deep within herself. "Maggie. A voice called from the other end of the diner. It was one of the regulars, a cheerful elderly lady named Mrs. Jensen. "You've really outdone yourselves tonight. I feel like I'm at home again." "That's the goal, Mrs. Jensen," Maggie replied, her heart swelling with pride. Dinner rushed on, and each plate served was a reminder of why they fought so hard to keep the diner alive. Laughter filled the cracks in the walls, each chuckle was a battlement against the storm. But as the night wore on and the rain pounding against the windows continued, Maggie's thoughts returned to Sarah. When the kitchen had slowed, Maggie found Sarah wiping her hands on a dish towel, her face glowing with satisfaction. With a gentle nudge, Maggie asked, "So, what's on your mind? You mentioned there was something you wanted to share." Sarah hesitated, glancing around as if ensuring their privacy. "It's just I've been running away for so long, from the expectations, from family, from everything. I thought I defined myself out there, but what I found was that I was lost. Coming back to the diner, it feels like coming home." Maggie felt a bittersweet tug in her heart. "What happened out there?" "It was a messy breakup. It shook me to my core. I left a piece of myself behind, and it took me ages to realize I needed to find my way back to what really mattered, to my roots, my family, to you," she added, sneaking a glance at Maggie. Maggie reached out for her hand, the warmth lingering between them like the comforting smells of the diner. "I'm glad you're here now. You're part of the heart of this place." Before Sarah could say more, thunder crashed outside, sending a ripple of energy through the diner. Jake entered, a grin splitting his face, obviously caught in the momentum of the evening's success. He caught sight of Maggie and Sarah and joined them. "I think we just served the most comfort food in a single night. It felt like every dish was a warm hug, don't you think?" Maggie laughed, and so did Sarah, her earlier solemnity melting into warmth. "You're right. This place is magic," Sarah replied. "Let's keep it going then. We should have monthly diners like this, bridging gaps, forging connections. We can call it Diner Nights," Jake suggested, the excitement driving at his heart. "Absolutely," Maggie exclaimed, the idea sparking something within her. But Jake paused. "We need to think about what we can do when hardships come knocking, like today. Let's make this diner a place of safety and reflection, a home not just for food, but for healing." The words, heavy yet hopeful, struck Maggie like a bolt of lightning. They needed this more than they knew, especially with the storm raging outside and within. Sarah nodded, her eyes shimmering with understanding. "That's beautiful. Just like the diner, we've all weathered our own storms," she said, glancing over toward the entrance as the door burst open again. Yet, as the storm grew louder outside, this time it was two familiar faces, Maggie's childhood friends who had drifted away, faces filled with uncertainty, but now illuminated by the warmth inside. "Is this the famous diner?" one of them joked, pushing back soaked hair, the previous tension broken by laughter. In that moment, the diner didn't just stand on its foundation, it was a bridge for lost souls to find their way back. After the brief reunion, laughter transformed into sincere exchanges, stories were shared, and memories flooded the diner like the storm outside. Each person carried their burdens, but together, they were more than their struggles, they were a family. Every smile, every nod forged new connections that transcended the trials of the past. As the night wore on, Maggie felt the spirit of the diner wrap around her like a warm embrace. The ominous storm that had threatened might have been relentless, but within these walls, a sense of belonging surged through their hearts. They were in this together, weathering not just the storm outside, but those within them. They had each other. While rain poured fiercely against the window panes, inside, laugh echoed deeper than any thunder, promising resilience and hope. The diner was alive, and so were they. Maggie caught Jake's gaze, a flicker of understanding passing between them, igniting hope and determination. "It's time to reclaim this place," he said quietly, his voice full of resolve. Yes, they could do it together. At that moment, Maggie knew. They would lift each other up, no matter what storms lay ahead. And with the roaring laughter echoing in the diner, she felt an unshakable truth together, they would thrive, stronger than any storm. So in this vibrant diner, with every flick of candlelight and shared meal, they would write a new chapter. A chapter of hope. A chapter of family. And there wasn't a storm big enough to stop them now. It was time to embrace the journey ahead, lighting the way, one story, one meal at a time. Don't miss out on the next adventure. You need to subscribe now to our channel to stay tuned for even more inspiring stories. Leave a like now to help feed the algorithm. Your support means the world. Comment below with your reactions and feelings about this heartwarming ending. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans understand the power of community. Let us grow together.